Welcome to Mindset Mastery. Tonight, we bring you the story that shook late-night television to its core, a moment so real, so raw that no amount of editing or spin could contain it. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't rehearsed, it was a collision between truth and illusion, between legacy and mockery, between a man who's lived through the fires of real life and a host who'd never been burned. It all started with a simple invitation, one that felt more like bait than respect. Clint Eastwood, a name that echoes with grit, war, and decades of unapologetic truth, was asked to appear on Jimmy Kimmel Live. The network believed it would be good ratings boost, a Hollywood legend sitting across from a late-night satirist, but beneath the glossy surface something else was brewing, a setup, a smirk waiting to happen. Clint didn't walk into that studio for applause, he didn't come for laughs, he came with a message, one born not from politics but from decades of watching this country slowly lose its spine. The producers were uneasy. He'd refused to submit talking points, refused makeup, refused handle as he sat quietly in the green room, sipping black coffee, eyes scanning the floor like he was walking through enemy territory. Jimmy Kimmel, ever the showman, prepared a monologue heavier than usual with political jabs, subtle digs at patriotism, masculinity, and tradition. The audience, warmed up by a crew that told them exactly when to clap, had no idea what was coming. They were there for entertainment. What they got was a dose of uncomfortable reality. When Clint Eastwood stepped onto the stage, the applause was polite but confused. He didn't wave, he didn't smile, he walked like a man who didn't care about the camera. As he nodded to Kimmel, sat down and looked directly at him with the quiet power of someone who's seen too much to be impressed. Kimmel tried to keep it light, jokes about cowboy hats, jabs about old movies, but Clint didn't bite. He responded plainly, directly. He wasn't that to be cute. The laughter grew awkward. The tension began to simmer. Kimmel shifted in his seat. So Clint, Kimmel said, "You've made quite a few political statements in your day. Any regrets?" Clint didn't blink. "Regret comes from compromise. I don't compromise what I believe in you." That was the first hit. The audience chuckled nervously. Kimmel tried to pivot. "I mean, some people would say your views area broken by, outdated, maybe even dangerous." Clint leaned in slightly. "Only in a world where strength is feared and truth is offensive." Silence. The band didn't play. The laugh sign didn't flash. For the first time, Kimmel hesitated. He tried again. "But surely you understand, Clint, that times have changed. People are more sensitive now. They want safe spaces." "Safe spaces," Clint repeated. "You think the battlefield came with a trigger warning? You think life waits for you to feel ready? The world doesn't owe anyone comfort. It owes them nothing." You could feel the shift. The audience, once buzzing with performative energy, sat still. Some nodded, others looked confused. The producers, watching from backstage, began to fidget. This wasn't the segment they planned. Kimmel chuckled nervously. "That's a very broken bar, intense way of putting it." Clint's voice sharpened. "Intensity is how change happens. This country was built by people who didn't wait for applause." Kimmel looked into the camera, trying to regain control. "Let's lighten the mood. I heard you once talk to an empty chair at a convention. That was kind of weird, right?" Clint didn't smile. The chair had more spine than most of the media today. The room cracked, not with lyro, but with realization. Kimmel stammered, unprepared for the force of the moment. He reached for a card on his desk, but couldn't find the words. Clint had stopped playing the game. He wasn't there to trade jabs or sell a movie. He was there to speak without permission. "Let me ask you something," Clint said, eyes fixed. "When did comedy become a weapon against truth? When did this become about mocking what you don't understand instead of listening to it?" The crowd was silent. Kimmel tried to respond, but Clint cut through. "You don't get to laugh at the country falling apart while sipping champagne backstage. You don't get to ridicule the people who built the roads you drive on, the ones who fought for the freedom that lets you joke for a living." A producer's voice crackled and Kimmel's earpiece changed direction. Cut to break, but Clint wasn't finished. "I came here knowing exactly what this was, a trap, a circus, a moment for clips and clout. But I don't care about views, I care about what's real." Kimmel leaned back. "Look, Clint, maybe this isn't the right platform." Clint stood up calmly, slowly, with the kind of dignity that doesn't need to shout, "You're right, it's not." He pulled off his mic, placed it on the desk, and turned to walk off. The moment Clint Eastwood walked off that stage, something shifted, and not just in the studio but across the country. Jimmy Kimmel sat in stunned silence. The usual glint of sarcasm drained from his eyes. The producer scrambled, cueing an unplanned commercial break. The band didn't play. The applause sign didn't flash. It was like the show forgot it was supposed to be a show. Backstage was chaos. Interns running, earpieces buzzing, executives on the phone. They hadn't expected this. They thought they were inviting an old actor for a few laughs and maybe a controversial sound bite. Instead, they got a legend, reminding America of its reflection, a crack, confused, but still holding the weight of history. Within minutes, the internet lit up. A clip of Clint's exit was uploaded on an anonymous account, and within 30 minutes, it had over 2 million views. Clint walks out, the hashtag read, and soon #Eastwood versus Kimmel was trending across every platform. People weren't just watching it, they were arguing about it, and for the first time in a while they weren't arguing about Trump or Biden, they were arguing about dignity, truth, and what it means to speak without a filter. Some networks scrambled to spin the story. Late night loyalists accused Clint of being out of touch, of bringing politics to a comedy show, but others saw something else in unfiltered confrontation between celebrity satire and seasoned integrity, people from small towns, veterans, middle-class workers. So they shared the clip like gospel. It wasn't about agreeing with Clint's views, it was about someone finally refusing to be mocked for having them. Kimmel's team released a short, polished statement. We respect Mr. Eastwood's views and appreciate his appearance on the show, but that wasn't enough. The damage, or as many
Welcome
called
to
it,
Mindset
Mastery
had
tonight.
already
We
landed.
bring you the
Late
story
night
that
comedy
shook
once
late night
considered the
television
voice of the
to its
cultural
core.
conscience
Was
was
now
now
being
being
so
viewed
raw
as
that
the
no
punchline
amount of
itself
editing
in
or
response
spin could
Eastwood
contain it.
didn't
It
tweet, he
wasn't
didn't
scripted,
issue
it
a
wasn't
statement,
rehearsed,
he
it
didn't
was
go
a
on a
collision
media
between
tour, he
truth
went
and
silent.
illusion,
And
between
that silence
legacy
was
and
louder
mockery,
than
between
anything
a man
Kimmel
who
could
could
say
say
a
a
week
week
later,
later,
a YouTube
and a
channel
host who'd never been
unaffiliated
burned
with
at
any
all
network
start to
released
release
an
an
unreleased
unreleased
portion of the interview,
and it
more
like
like
bait.
this.
Seen
Respect
backstage
Clint
talking
Eastwood
to a
and
camera
that
assistant.
Nervously
With Grit,
asked,
War,
why
and
did you
decades
really
of
come on the show?
unapologetic truth was asked
Clint
to appear
answers
on
without
Jimmy Kimmel
hesitation
Live
because
because
someone has to
believed it would be
remind
good
people that you
ratings
don't
boost
need
a
permission
Hollywood
to
legend
speak the
sitting
truth.
across
That
from a
clip added
late-night
gasoline
satirist,
to the
but
fire.
beneath the
Debates
glossy
exploded
surface,
across
something
college
else was
campuses.
brewing. As
High
set up a
schools played the
smirk,
video
waiting
in
to
civics
happen.
class.
Clint
Didn't
didn't
walk
walk
into
into
that
that
studio
studio
sides
for
either
applause. He
condemned
didn't
or
come for laughs. He
celebrated.
came with a
Were
message.
made
One
news
born not
anchors
from
debated
politics,
the
but
morality
from
of
decades
guest
of disrupting a
this
comedy
country.
show. But
Slowly
beneath the
lose
noise
its
was a
spine, the
quiet
producers
admiration
were
from people
uneasy.
who were
He'd
tired of
refused to
submit
submit
talking
replacing.
points, refused
Journalism
makeup,
tired of
refused
mockery,
handlers. He
replacing
sat
debate.
quietly
The
in
real
green room,
question
sipping
everyone
black
began
coffee,
asking
asking
was,
was,
what are we
like he
even
was
watching
walking
anymore?
through enemy
Late night
territory.
shows
Jimmy
have
Kimmel
once
never
been
the
about
showman,
bringing
prepared a
people
monologue
together,
heavier
laughter
than
as a
usual,
bridge,
with
not a
political
weapon.
jabs,
But
subtle
now night
digs at
after night, it
patriotism,
felt like the
masculinity,
same
and
script
tradition.
ridicule.
The
Anyone who doesn't
clap
clap crew that
who
told them
doesn't tweet
exactly
the right
when to
things,
clap
who
had
doesn't
no
ban
idea
Clint
what
Eastwood's
was
moment
coming.
was
They were
just
there
an
for
exit,
entertainment.
it was a
What
mirror,
they
and
got
many
was a
didn't
dose
like
of
what
they saw in the
uncomfortable
weeks that
reality
followed.
when
Clint
something
Eastwood
even
stepped onto the
stranger
stage.
happened.
The applause
Ratings
was
for
polite,
Jimmy
but
Kimmel
confused.
Live
He didn't
took a
wave, he
deep
didn't
and not
smile. He walked
catastrophic,
like a man who
but
didn't care
noticeable
about
at
the
the same
cameras.
time.
He
Old
nodded to
interviews
music.
sat
Clint
down
started
and looked directly
resurfacing
at
him
him
with
with
speeches.
quiet power of
Interviews
someone
even
who'd seen
old
too
behind
much to
the
be
scenes
impressed.
footage
Kimmel
from
tried
films
to
like
keep it
Gran
light, jokes
Torino
about
and
cowboy
Million Dollar
hats,
Baby
about
began
old
trending
movies,
younger
but Clint didn't
generations.
bite. He
Many of them
responded
had only
plainly
known him
directly.
as that old
Wasn't that
conservative
to be
guy.
cute? The
Started
laughter
watching with
grew
curiosity.
awkward. They saw a man
Tension
who
began
didn't
to
scream.
simmer. Kimmel
Didn't
shifted
tweet
in
at
seat,
midnight.
so
Who
Clint
didn't
Kimmel
need a
said,
viral hashtag.
"You've made quite a
Just
few political
calm, quiet,
statements in your
unwavering
day and
conviction."
He reminded them of
Clint
someone
didn't
they'd
blink
never seen on
regret comes
screen
from before their
compromise. I
grandfather,
don't
their
compromise
father,
what I
neighbor who
believe in.
always
That was
stood
when
when
the
the
anthem
anthem
played,
played,
who
who
never
chuckled
asked for
nervously.
attention,
Kimmel
but
tried to
always
pivot.
showed up when it mattered.
I mean, some
Grassroots
people would say your
movement
views,
began.
area
branding,
broken
no
by
influences,
influences,
just
maybe
people
even
sharing
dangerous.
stories
Clint
online.
leaned in
Writing.
slightly.
I
may
may
not
not
agree
agree
with
with
everything
he
he
said,
but
but
damn
damn
it,
it,
he
he
was
was
brave.
offensive silence.
Even celebrities
chimed in,
sign
some
didn't
cautiously
flash for the
praising
first
his
time.
composure,
Kimmel
others
hesitated,
warning
tried
of the
again.
danger of
But
letting
surely
such
you
views
understand
go
Clint that
unchallenged.
time
But the
to
public
change
wasn't
people
listening
are
to
more
spin
sensitive
anymore.
now. They want
Colleges
safe
invited
spaces,
Clint to
safe
speak. He
spaces.
declined
Clint
news
repeated
anchors,
his
requested exclusive
into
interviews.
trigger
He
warning. You
refused. He
think
simply
life
returned
waits
to
for
his
you to
ranch
feel
feeling
ready
ready
to
to
world,
doing
doesn't
what he
owe
always
anyone
did, working
confidence.
hard,
The nothing
staying
you
grounded,
could.
and letting
Feel
the
the
world
shift
talk
the
while he
audience
walked
once
on,
buzzing
and
with
yet
performative
silence
energy
kept
sat
echoing.
still.
Now
Some nodded,
parents
others
looked
looked
confused.
confused.
The producers
Their kids
watching
to
from
watch the
backstage
full
began
interview
to
instead.
fidget.
This
This
wasn't
wasn't
the
the
segment.
segment.
They
They
planned.
coffee
Kimmel
houses
chuckled
and job
nervously.
sites all
That's a
buzzed with
very
the same
broken
question.
bar.
Was
Was
that
that
real?
real?
Did you see what Clint
sharp
said?
and
Intensity
still?
is
When
how
did we
change
stop
happens.
laughing?
This
The
country
people
was
who
built
built
by
this
people
country
who didn't wait for
a turning
applause. Kimmel
point, not
looked
because
because
of
of
who
who
Clint
Clint
Eastwood
Eastwood
would
gained
say, but
control.
because of
That's
what
right.
he refused
The
to
mood
become.
I
He
heard
could have
you
played a
once.
long take in the
Talked to an
jokes,
empty
laughed
chair
on
at a
cue,
convention
collected
that
a
was
paycheck,
kind of
and
weird,
gone
right?
home,
Clint
but
didn't smile.
he
The chair
walked
had
out.
more spine than
And that
most of the
walk
media
wasn't
today.
away from the
room
camera.
cracked,
It was
not
toward
with
something the
but with
culture
realization.
existed,
Kimmel stammered
respect, truth,
unprepared
courage,
for
the
the force of
the moment
didn't cut.
reached
The
for
director
caught on
froze
his
the
desk,
audience
but
sat
couldn't
in stunned
find a word.
silence.
Clint had stopped playing the game. Jimmy
wasn't there to
Kimmel
trade jabs or
anger,
sell a movie.
but in
He was there
truth,
to
and for the
speak
first
without
time in a
permission.
long
Let me
time,
ask you
late
something,
night
Clint
TV
said,
felt
eyes
real. It
fixed.
didn't end
When
off
did
the
Clint
Clint
Eastwood
become a
off that
weapon
stage
against
in many
truth?
ways?
When
That
did
moment
this
was
become
just the
about
beginning.
mocking
What
what you
followed
don't
was not
understand
a
instead
single
of listening
viral
to it? The
episode.
crowd
It was a
was
slow
silent. Kimmel
burn.
tried to respond.
Cultural
But Clint
aftershock
cut for you
that
don't get
touched
to
every
laugh at
layer
the
of
country
society,
falling
from
apart
corporate
while sipping
boardrooms to
champagne
high school
backstage. You
classrooms,
don't
from
get to
kitchen
ridicule
tables
the
to
people
state
who built the
Senate floors.
roads you
People
drive
weren't
on,
just
the ones
talking
who
about
fought
what
for the
happened on
freedom
Jimmy
that
Kimmel
lets you joke
Live.
for
They
a
were
living.
asking,
Producers
what
his
does it
voice
mean?
crackled, and
In the
Kimmel's
days
earpiece
that
changed
followed
direction.
Clint's silent
Cut to
exit
break,
became
but
a Clint
symbol one that
wasn't
refused
finished.
to
I
fade.
came
The
here
media
knowing
tried
exactly
to move
what
on
this was a
scandals broke other celebrities said outrageous things. But I don't care about views, I care about unapologetic stuck around like a question. Maybe this isn't the right wanted to answer social media. Stood up, didn't let it go. Dozens of compilation videos were doesn't need to shout you're right. It's not his pulled off scenes, placed it on desk, clips from the interview off the moment Clint Eastwood from teenagers and retirees alike. One video titled "The Studio Real Man in Hollywood." The country Jimmy Kimmel sat under a week another called Eastwood versus the sarcasm, a kind of anthem for those tired scramble, queuing an unplanned commercial break. But here's what made it different. It wasn't just conservative. It was like the show forgot it was supposed to be a show backstage. Politics, chaos, same thing. Running, he said what he believed. There was a hunger for that. Not hadn't expected not ideology. They were inviting an old actor for universities and normally liberal strongholds. But instead, they hosting student debates, reminding America free speech, reflection, the Eastwood, but still holding the weight of essays on within minutes. The internet lit up, and the cost of political comedy. It was no longer about one man. It was about 30 minutes on the other side of the spectrum. Comedy rights out. The hashtag red influences doubled down. They made parody trending across every platform. People weren't just watching Clint's age and politics, but even those began to backfire. In trying to mock Trump, they highlighted the arguing thing that dignity made him powerful, what it means to speak without a filter. Some networks watching in small towns across America, families watch reruns of Clint being out of touch because of nostalgia, but because they wanted to remember others saw something else without unfiltered confrontation between celebrity satire and seasoned integrity. Remember small towns, veterans, middle class asking who. So they shared the clip like gospel. It wasn't more interesting was what happened in Washington. A group of freshmen finally refusing to be Democrat and Republican. Kimmel's team released a short polished statement. We respect Mr. Eastwood's views and appreciate his appearance on the show, but that wasn't enough for zinger-filled sound bites. In their words, we're tired of politics. As performance, let's get back to talking like adults. Clint never acknowledged the statement. He didn't have to. The idea had already taken root. Cable news for once was behind the curve. They kept playing the clip, analyzing body language, speculating about hidden meanings, but the people had already moved on from speculation. They weren't looking for deeper meanings. They were taking the moment at face value. He stood his ground. He got mocked. He left with his dignity. That was a meaning. Hollywood agents whispered that studios were considering projects centered on themes of old-school masculinity, honor, and truth. A few even reached out to Eastwood to pitch biopic-style films based loosely on his public persona. He declined every offer. He wasn't looking to become a myth. He was just being himself, and that's what made it mythic. In a world addicted to clout, Clint walked away from the spotlight, and the spotlight followed him anyway, not because of scandal, not because of a PR stunt, but because millions of people saw something they hadn't seen in years. A man who doesn't perform for approval. The more people talked about him, the more quiet he became. No social posts, no clarifications, no follow-ups. He was done speaking. The moment had spoken for itself. Months later, during an awards ceremony where Eastwood was supposed to receive a Lifetime Achievement honor, he didn't show up. Instead, he sent a handwritten letter. It read, "I'm grateful, but truth doesn't need a statue, it needs courage. Keep going." That letter went viral all over again. It was framed and hung in offices, shared in veterans' newsletters, quoted in motivational speeches, and even tattooed by a few diehard fans. Something was changing. A quiet resistance was building, and not loud, not angry, but fame. People were tired of being told what to think, how to laugh, and who to hate. They didn't all agree with Clint, but they admired that he refused to be packaged in a world of filters. He was real. The next time Jimmy Kimmel took the stage, his tone was different, sharper, more defensive. He joked about Clint again, but the laughter didn't quite land the same. The studio audience clapped, but it felt thinner, more polite than genuine, because deep down they had seen something that couldn't be unseen. The man who walked away didn't just exit a stage, he entered a legacy, and just like that, Clint Eastwood disappeared into the shadows, a quiet, steady, unchanged dead, while the world kept arguing about what had happened. But he didn't need to say another word. The moment had already spoken. In a time where noise rules and outrage sells, he reminded us all of a simple truth: sometimes the most powerful thing you can do, broken bar, is walk away. That's mindset mastery, where silence speaks louder than applause and dignity never needs a microphone.